it's so unique, the chair that you're in, and that you're coaching junior hockey in the town that you grew up in. That's I would say, a lot of coaches get that opportunity and to do it as long as you have, and I think in particular, just bringing a championship to the town when they hadn't really experienced that before. Do you think that kind of played into it? Just that, hey, like, I've been given this opportunity not just to lead this group of young men, but also to do it and bring something really special to the community. Because, as you said, just being a kid watching those senior games, you must have recognized the connectivity. And I don't think, if you've never played or coached in a small town and seen it with your own eyes, it's really hard to maybe describe the glue that is junior hockey.
100%, Aaron. That is, I already, I felt the responsibility. I probably felt some pressure. Um, being from here, it's interesting. Um, it's junior hockey, it's junior A hockey, but when you do it in your hometown, there's definitely it's a different opportunity, but also probably a different weight that comes with it. But it was one that I always embraced, and I knew how much the team was starting to mean to people here. So um, I wanted to recreate some of the feelings that I had as a child, and they had the opportunity to watch these special senior teams come through, and all these kids were emulating, and they wanted to be Steinbach Huskies in the 79 and 80 and 81. And we've got to get this program to where the kids want to be Pistons, and our fans wear Pistons jerseys, and in the coffee shops they're talking about the Pistons, and if they're upset because their power play is not working, or if you know
That's what you want.
that's what you want. And I remember a couple of years ago we had a really good team. Just disappointing playoff finish. We lost, and last year we lost in the finals. And I remember going to the coffee shops, and um, as I walked to my seat, I passed three tables, and and all of them had a thought, a comment, you know, either disappointed. They were all disappointed, and I got that, but supportive. But yet, you could tell they felt
They want to be
like,
heard.
yeah, absolutely. And I sat down with a friend of mine, and we were just talking. And after an hour, I left, and the next table was one of our billets, and they had seen me walk in and have these conversations, and they knew they had overheard a few of the comments, etc. And he said to me, he says, "I'll leave it alone for another day, Paul." And, and I said, "You know what, Bruce? I'm all good with that. This is what we always wanted. We always wanted it to matter. And the fan,
Yeah.
I didn't want to be a part of a program where the community was apathetic to it, and where it, a loss is a loss. I want them to. It's good when they feel it, because when we win, uh, they felt that, and they drove those celebrations, and they waved the Pistons flag, and there was a tremendous amount of community pride and civic pride that came with that. And so, yeah, you definitely um, wear the bat a little harder when it's your hometown. I don't go home for the
Yeah.
summer.
I bet you do.
This is home. So it
Yeah.
it until the next season, we have a fresh slate. You hear it at the golf course, you hear it at the grocery store. My wife often asks me, didn't you just go get milk? And I'm like, yeah, well, I ran into so and so and so and
I
so,
was
and
just gonna say, like, it must be a totally different experience. Like, yeah, just doing like the regular day to day stuff.
it totally is. And but but I wouldn't want it any other way. To be honest with you, and that's
Yeah.
like I said, we wanted to create something where it mattered to the people, and it was a goal of our, that initial group played such a big role in it. Our board of directors were really instrumental in connecting everybody, and our guys have done a terrific job of just getting so plugged into our community over the years. That's been a big part of our culture here as well. And um, you know, but they have that share some of that responsibility as well. And it's how they're in a fishbowl here. 19,000 people that live in our community, and people know who the players are. And so, that can be a positive. Um, but and it is. I think a couple years ago, one of the players came into the room and he said, "Hey, I just had breakfast with the guys. Some of the guys are coming in. It was about 10 o'clock, and they were like, yeah, it was awesome. So we went for breakfast. There were 8 of us, and some gentleman bought us breakfast." I said, "Well, that's awesome." Yeah, he said he follows the team, and he's was asking about last night, and said, "Boy, I love the way you guys played," and knew our names, and I said, "Well, that's great." I said, "That's the benefit of playing in a small town." And some of the other guys came in. I said, "Just out of curiosity, what did he look like?" And he said, "Well, he looked like kind of like a grandpa. He was wearing like a grandpa hat." And I said, "Okay, well, that really doesn't narrow it down." But
Yeah.
he said, "Yeah, he had glasses and a goatee." And I said, "Well, that sounds an awful lot like my dad." So, uh,
No kidding.
yeah, as it turned out, it was my dad. But then the next week, it happened again. Somebody else had bought them breakfast. So, that's one of the things in a small community that the players, if they plug in, they give back to our community, they're going to get back. And they're treated like mini NHLers here, and but with that
Yeah.
comes a responsibility on how you conduct yourself, and um, I think our players have really embraced that.
Well, I would think, like, just from what I know about the process of teams transitioning from being non-competitive to being contenders, like it's on the surface, or if I guess from an outsider's perspective, it might look like it's a smooth trajectory. I think that's probably generally not the case. Like, were there any, just in terms of bringing a new level of accountability to the team, like in those early years when you're going towards a championship, like were there any cases where you had to make some tough decisions
Oh,
to sort of set the table?
totally. Now, one comes to mind immediately. I thought it was pivotal for me and for our staff as a group. Was we had three key players breach curfew just prior to Christmas, and we had a couple of key games that we needed. We wanted to get to 500 by Christmas time. That was our goal,
That's right. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we decided to, if we're gonna hold our players accountable, we're gonna have to make a tough decision here. And we sat two forwards and our starting goaltender. Um, so we thought, okay,
That vibrates in the room.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, our guys battled and we won that game. We won that last game, and
That's
it
awesome.
gave us so much more.
And that's right before Christmas.
Totally,
So great way to go into the break. Like,
exactly.
goodness, that's great coaching, Paul. You got to give yourself credit to
Well,
script it like that.
I don't know. It gave me so much more resolve moving forward that just do the right thing. If you talk about accountability, then you better follow through with it. And as tough as that was, it would have been really easy to say, okay, well, let's wait till we're 2 games over 500 and then we can scratch them. But, you know, and I've talked to one of those players who coaches now, and he talks about that. He was one of the players we suspended. And-
No
yeah,
way.
and he talks about that to his players today on what happened to him. Um, you know, he was embarrassed. He's a great team guy. Made a mistake, no question. But he talked about that now that um, how important that was, not only in his development, but now as a coach, understanding that that was the right decision to make. How hard it is sometimes. I mean, sometimes you put performance ahead of the development of your players or your record, or um, but we had rules in place, and I think we would have lost all credibility had we not scratched them that night.
I love it. I think that's just, it's one of those things, right? Like it's on the surface, it's so easy to say that's an obvious decision, but in the moment, like those are, you can easily talk yourself out of doing the right thing
100%.
as a coach. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was part of our
Um,
buy-in. The guys really understood.
yeah.
No, we meant business. We not only wanted to be 500, we wanted to make the playoffs, and then that just kind of progressed as that year went on. So